Life's challenges can appear overwhelming at times, and pain plays a part in all of our lives. But our race is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon with hurdles. So how do you keep going when all seems lost? Today, we'll talk about moving from pain to purpose. But before we do, welcome to Mornings with Bishop Robert. A few minutes for you and me to sit in my study together and encourage one another. My goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know Him and His Word personally and better. So if our time together today speaks to your heart, let me invite you to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Boy, it sure is good to be able to get up in the morning and make coffee. So grab a cup and lift it up. Let's talk about moving from pain to purpose. You know, hope is not lost. No matter how bleak the circumstances may seem today, there's a next step you can take. If you can breathe, there's hope. We can give our burdens to the Lord and He will take care of us. That's a promise found in Psalm 55, verse 22. Your storms are only temporary, but the blessings of God, well, they last forever. We've all been in situations that appear to be impossible. But when people walk with God, the impossible becomes possible. Because God isn't limited by our circumstances. Now, we may not be able to see the resources He has to give us. We may not understand the reasons behind the challenges we face. But if we face them with God's strength and wisdom, we'll have God's blessing, His provision, and His direction. And today's verse tells us how to do it. Rejoicing in hope, enduring in troubles, continuing steadfastly in prayer. How can we rejoice in hope when all seems lost? By placing our hope in God, not in the circumstances. He can make a way where there seems to be no way. He's known to work in ways that we can't see or even comprehend to change the circumstances. It's when the circumstances are massive and appear overwhelming that we need to look to our God, because He's bigger than the circumstances. He is the God of hope. And because He's the God of hope, He can fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you can abound in hope. His hope allows us to trust in Him at all times, to pour out our hearts before Him, because God is a refuge for us. You know, I remember one afternoon last week at the Hertz Arena when I stepped outside for a break. And as I stood across from the makeshift helipad where we'd watched Coast Guard helicopters deliver people they had rescued, I heard a voice behind me. A hurricane victim was sitting on the curb of the sidewalk outside the arena, singing Amazing Grace. Her voice clear and strong, she proclaimed her hope in God with that famous hymn. And then she kept on singing song after song of praise and thanks. Well, her faith and her joy were like a brilliant beacon of a lighthouse on a dark and stormy night. And a number of the folks outside the arena were listening. She didn't see her answers yet. She was still living in a storm shelter. But the storm had passed, and she was rejoicing in her hope. Her songs reminded me of the psalm that says, "But let all who take refuge in you rejoice, and let them ever sing for joy." The Hertz Arena wasn't her refuge. God was. Now, I cannot say if she knew what her next steps would be, but she was moving. She was moving from pain to purpose with her expressions of hope in God. Enduring in troubles is often, if not always, the key to winning the victory over the battles of life. You know, the longest hurdle race in track and field is the 400-meter hurdles. It takes place over 10 hurdles positioned 35 meters apart. Life would be a lot easier if we knew when our hurdles were coming, or if we knew there'd only be 10 of them. But even though life's hurdles don't follow those rules, it is still the folks who are able to jump them and continue moving forward that win their races. Don't listen to the voices that tell you you can't make it. See, I believe that God will do the impossible in my life as I walk with Him. It's His voice we need to listen to. You know, an older expert once said of another younger coach, he possesses minimal football knowledge and he lacks motivation. In case you're wondering, the guy was referring to Vince Lombardi. Did you know the parents of Enrico Caruso believed his teacher, who had told them, he's got no voice at all. The boy just cannot sing. Yeah, they urged him to become an engineer. Walt Disney was fired from a job he once held for lack of creative ideas. And Thomas Edison's teachers gave up on him. They said he's too stupid to do anything. But none of those people listened. They just kept jumping hurdles. They endured in trouble. They pressed on. Let the God who gives hope move you. Let the hope of God give you the strength to endure in trouble. We move from pain to purpose by jumping the hurdles in our path and continuing the race. Endurance is the key to finishing the race. Endurance is the key to victory. Continuing steadfastly in prayer is the key to knowing what God is directing. He says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my eye upon you. You know, as we speak with God in prayer, He gives us instruction, gives us direction. He teaches us the things we need to know to overcome the next hurdle. And He keeps His eye upon us. We're never alone, never running only with our own strength. Our steps are established by the Lord when we delight in His way. And even though we may stumble, we will not fall, for the Lord Himself upholds us with His hand. We move from pain to purpose by continuing our dialogue with God, listening to His counsel, and obeying His instruction. You know, foxholes are filled with people making promises to God. So are hurricane shelters. One of the biggest hurdles is not walking with God when life is overwhelming. In times of crisis, lots of folks ask God for His help. No, the biggest hurdle is keeping our eyes on the finish line when we think the time of crisis has passed and we think we're finally out of the woods. When we think we're capable of handling things in our own strength. Don't give up on God. Keep walking with Him. We move from pain to purpose only as we rejoice in hope, endure in troubles, and continue steadfastly in prayer. Hey, as we wrap up, can I ask you to help me introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know Him and His Word personally and better? Please like this video to help more people see it. And then click follow or subscribe so that you and I can get together every day. Leave me something in the comments section telling me about how you press on and endure in hope. And if this time together today has touched your heart, let me know. One more thing. Share this with a friend. But also, I want to remind you that we are still accepting financial donations to help the hurricane victims down in the Fort Myers area. So please help with that if you're able. Share this with a friend, and as you do, you're part of the team that's touching hearts all over the world with the love of Jesus. Thanks for helping.